Good afternoon and welcome back to another ironic introduction to another video. Today I kind of want to talk a little bit about Alliance War and the upcoming changes to the meta as a result of Stubborn Tactic being removed. Before I dive in, I will have a link to Marvel True Ghost's Twitter post here where I will be referencing the Regenerator, the Bulwark, and the Protect. These are just like amazing resources. Love Marvel True Ghost for these. Absolutely phenomenal. Even if I just touch them and, for you to have reference for you all as well, absolutely phenomenal. Really, really recommend you follow them on Twitter, at least for this stuff, but it's super useful to have. But that said, diving into the Alliance War Season 24 update itself, I think that the impact of Stubborn being removed as a tactic, there is this question of which of the new tactics, Regenerator, Bulwark, or Protect, is going to be the new meta. And this does define the meta in the sense that there is no more Stubborn, but it's not that these new tactics are going to be all defining meta-defining tactics, because the real impact, the biggest change in removing Stubborn from Alliance War is the return of the Queens, Ghost and Quake. Because Stubborn was so anti-Ghost, anti-Quake, there were a lot of challenging nodes and fights that you either had to learn how to play completely differently or just opt for different champions. And honestly, the safer answer was to opt for different champions. There are very simple nodes that Ghost or Quake just completely meme, like Hazard Shift is probably my foremost answer for an example there, where you just Quake it or you just Ghost it. But because of Stubborn, because of that indestructibility, you couldn't. Or Mixmaster Korg is a really good example of, it's honestly really easy to Quake Korg on Mixmaster. It's not hard at all. But because of Stubborn, you had to throw in well-timed parries in order to actually get a damage phase off. And because of that, no one was quaking the Mixmaster Korg. But with Stubborn being removed, I would be very surprised to see people not just quaking the Korg. Now, there will be a lot of people who just bring White Mags as usual or Omega Red because they've already gone comfortable, but it's going to vastly change the way people approach defense placement, because now there is the overarching question of, is this quakeable, is this ghostable? Because immediately challenging defenders become a joke. They become just like anybody else, just a simple health pool, just a simple SP2 game is over, or a simple Quake and Shake never got hit kind of a moment. So that is the real change to Alliance War meta that I wanted to mention. And I know that is the result of the new tactic, but that has nothing to do with which tactic gets placed. Whether it's Regenerator, or Bulwark, or Protect, Ghost and Quake are completely redefining the meta now, and that's what we're used to. It's not like a new thing, but it is something that needs to be mentioned, because I think as people look at these different tactics, that's the real underlying change in the meta, the change in the attackers. But that said, I do personally think Protect is going to be the new tactic that Alliance Wars run. That will be overall just the best one to run. A lot of that has to do with Kabam moving in a direction but kind of failing to do it. It's kind of like they took a half step and then thought about it and then just stopped in place. So they're saying that they actively want to avoid champions like Dr. Doom, Thing, and Korg because they are strong regardless of the tactic, and they do represent this in the Regenerator tactic, where we don't see Doom, Thing, or Korg. And they do that really well. Even all of the Regenerator champions in here, they're pretty reasonable, to handle. Mr. Sinister, Man-Thing, Mephisto, Guillotine 2099, they're all reasonable. They didn't even put Wolverine Weapon X in here, although this Wolverine image might represent, but because they represented Old Man Logan and Wolverine, I think it doesn't. They don't even have X-23 in here. There's missing a whole bunch of regeneration champs, actually. And that goes to show that they don't want Regenerator to be stacking onto already strong defenders. And that means a lot for the lower tiers, but in the upper tiers it means a lot less deaths. And for Regenerator, this goal of avoiding overly powerful defenders, just getting crazy stacked with a tactic, absolutely works. They did that absolutely great. And for Bulwark, to a degree, they've done that as well. They didn't really need to change the pool of Bulwark. There's still a couple annoying ones here. We do see Doom, we do see Mojo, but with the effect of Bulwark being not that crazy overpowered and honestly very easily replied to by bringing one of the very large pool of metal champions, it's not that bad either. So Bulwark immediately kind of just loses threat because the tactic itself isn't that big of a deal. It just stalls the fight a little bit, but it's very, very easily responded to. And that brings us to Protect, where the difference between Bulwark and Protect is in Bulwark, you have a couple of frustrating defenders like Doom or Mojo, but overall, this pool is fairly non-threatening. And stacked with a tactic, it's relatively non-threatening overall. What Protect does is it puts a permanent threat. And that's the difference between Bulwark and Protect, is they both kind of offer survivability in the defense, which is good because survivability adds threat. The longer the fight goes on, the longer or the higher chance that you'll either time out, make a mistake, fail to dex a special, right? The more specials you have to dodge, etc. But Protect is permanent. And it forces the players into a large/extra large champion pool versus large/extra large champion pool. So the roster restrictions a little bit tighter, and you have the return of already really powerful survivability champions that meshes very well with the tactic itself. A really good example are Sasquatch and Thing, who are already fairly tanky, even though Sasquatch is kind of torch bait, but they're very tanky. So getting additional beef, it meshes well, it synergizes with the champions. But this is where, you know, Kabam kind of fell short on their whole we don't want to stack on stack, because Protect already did that and they didn't touch it at all. Still, overall, not so bad, especially with the emergence of Quake and Ghost. Champions like Thing, who gets that, you know, insane amount of protection and survivability, suddenly becomes just a very simple Quake fight. You never trigger the protection, so it never matters. But yeah, that's the shift. It's going to be a reality of trying to find really good placements, but also trying to stack the paths or the minis in a way, shape, and form that maybe doesn't rely on the tactic, but relies on like a champion's inherent ability and the nodes themselves to deny Quake and Ghost. A good option being like Hazard Shift with Vision Arcus is the one that's mentioned. Sorry if I wasn't supposed to say that if you're in my alliance, but that's the one we're looking at, or just foregoing it altogether. That said, let me know what you think about the new season. I am very much so looking forward to it. I love Quake and I love Ghost, so for me, it's just like full win. But it does mean we're going to see the return of probably sub 5 deaths in higher tiered wars, maybe deathless wars as well. Just because I feel like there's going to be significantly less threat, as well as a lot more ingenuity from alliances. I'm looking forward to it. I'm stoked to be pushing in a higher tier alliance war. And I can't wait to see you on the battleground. That's it. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.